He's back in Cincinnati, Ohio. I mean, look at him there. You know, you went to the Bengals game on Sunday. You're out on Instagram. You're out on all these things. You even had the orange. Did you go buy that orange zip up that you had on for the game the other day just for the game?
That would be an absolute negative. I had that in my closet, and it had not been worn probably since the last time I was downtown to see the Bengals play at home.
And that, correct me if I'm wrong now, you're talking, there's no way I mean, you have a lot of stuff that's old and tired, but you also have a lot of new stuff that's not so tired. There's no way you have that pullover because, correct me if I'm wrong, the only other Bengals game, you've lived here 50 years almost, and the only other Bengals game you had been to prior to the game on Kansas City on Sunday was what, 1975? Did I read that right?
November 17, 1975. It was the first Monday night game ever played in Cincinnati, and it was between the Bengals and the Buffalo Bills. O.J. Simpson ran for 197 yards on 17 carries, and my main man, Kenny Anderson, threw for 447 yards and a Bengals win. That's the last time.
You know, when you stop and think about that, that was a day and age for Kenny Anderson to have that kind of game. I mean, really, football wasn't played that way in the 1970s. You know, we see guys throw for 300 seemingly, 4 or 5 of them every week, if not more than that.
Very good point.
I mean, that's nearly 450 yards. Was your guy Trumpy still playing then or no?
Oh, yeah, Trumpy caught all of one of those 31 passes that Kenny completed that day. I made a point of checking that. I think it's a travesty he's not in the Hall of Fame. I don't see how. I read an article by which is a Dave Delamalure. It was a lineman with the Buffalo Bills.
Joe Delamalure, I think it was.
Joe Delamalure is in the Hall of Fame. And he in the article, he said, it baffles me. Every day I wake up and think about football. I can't help but thinking about the fact that Ken Anderson's not in the Hall of Fame. And he said, I don't understand that. And I don't either. You look at his numbers and compare them with some of the other quarterbacks that are in that league, and you wonder in the Hall, how in the world he's not in there.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to happen sooner or later.
I hope so.
I think there are a lot of people out there that feel the same way that you do. You know, we had Paul Daugherty on yesterday, Dad, and, you know, he has written for the better part of the last 3 or 4 years how he threw in the towel on his favorite team, the Pittsburgh Pirates, after they traded away a bunch of players years ago, young players that could have been a part of a foundation, and how he now loves baseball, but he doesn't have any more expectations for his favorite team. And he makes the argument that, you know, if you're a Reds fan, you need to alter your expectations and just go enjoy the game. I don't know about you. God bless him for being able to do that. If I'm rooting for a team, man, I'm not going down there just satisfied to be there and watch a sport. I want my team to win, and I'm expecting them to try to compete to win.
No, I don't disagree with what you say, Tom, but at the same time, and I'll give you a good example. I've become an Ohio State football fan over the years. I like the way they play. I've respected the people that they've had coaching there in the years in which I have paid attention to what they have been able to accomplish. And as much as I like to see them win, and as painful as it was for many to watch Michigan beat their brains out, especially in the second half, I don't get the same feeling unless I had a vested interest in the team. Do I want Ohio State to win in football? Yes. Does it pain me to no end when they don't win? No, it doesn't, because I don't have a vested interest. Like going to Chapel Hill a week or so, 2 weeks ago, and watching them get beat by Georgia Tech, which was ridiculous, and it made me mad as hell. But I understand what he says. Oftentimes, I get more enjoyment out of watching a game where I have no rooting interest one way or the other. And I know what he says, but I think what he says, if you're a Reds fan or you're a Pirates fan, which he once was, or wherever you might live, you can't help but start to pull for that team, and then it pains you more when they don't win.
All these baseball signings, gosh, it doesn't seem that long ago when the Reds and and the Angels in the same year. The Cardinals had a decision to make about Albert Pujols. They let him walk out the door. He goes to the Angels 10 years, $250 million. Reds give Joey Votto basically the same contract at $25 million a year. Dad, you got guys like Mitch Haniger, who's a nice player.
Yeah.
But now all of a sudden you got a guy like him making $14, $15 million a year. Aaron Judge, it appears, is going for $40 million a year, 9 years to the Yankees.
Yep.
It's just insane. I can't believe it. And when I say it's insane, I always preface by saying, God bless anybody, make as much money as you can. I mean, if you're out there and somebody wants your services and they're willing to pay for it, good for you. But, Dad, I got to tell you, the hope for a number of teams, half the teams, maybe more in the league in years past, maybe you could say we still have hope. It seems like every day that goes by, hope is continuing to disappear for many, many mid to small market teams in this day and age.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think this game is probably more screwed up than any of the major sports. And unfortunately, not being a Rob Manfred fan, nor have I ever been a Rob Manfred fan, it blows my mind how he keeps his damn job and makes the money he makes, because I really don't think, and it may be unfair to say that, he's not doing his job because he can't figure out a way to right this ship to some extent. And because maybe there is no way. I don't know. But all I know is the salaries continue to go up and up and up. And the more it goes up, the more it hurts clubs like this one and so many others, the Minnesotas and the Tampa Bays and the Pittsburgh Pirates, and you go on, Kansas City. I don't know what the answer is. But all I see is a lot of talking from the commissioner and his minions, and not a hell of a lot of work being done to try and figure out how to right this thing. I've often said the greatest commissioner in the history of professional sports was Pete Rozelle, because he had the wisdom and the foresight back in the 60s to implement a financial plan that has worked wonders as far as the National Football League is concerned. Not a commissioner in baseball, not a commissioner in the NBA or the NHL or any of those sports ever came up with a plan that Pete Rozelle did as far as revenue sharing is concerned. I've had people all the time talk about salary caps, and why can't baseball implement a salary cap? The best thing they've been able to do is the luxury tax. And you know what? That hadn't really worked, because it doesn't deter the big money teams like the Yankees from giving Aaron Judge 9 years and $360 million, and Hal Steinbrenner on the heels of that salary being paid out over the next 9 years to Aaron Judge, saying we still have plenty of money more to put us back in a position where we can more adequately challenge Houston and win the American League pennant and probably the World Series. So I just scratch my head in wonderment at the predicament that baseball finds itself in, and even more so in how in the world they're ever going to figure out a way to get out of it.
Well, Dad, and you know this better than anybody because you've been around forever, the sport. When you mention those two words, and look, Scott Boras, I know you don't like the guy. He has been great to me. He's come on my podcast twice. We're going to have him again on the show once we get through all of this madness and free agency and so on and so forth. Look, he's a very smart guy. He's a very successful guy. His clients love him. I mean, they love him. And why wouldn't you? But the second you bring up the two words salary cap to Scott Boras, and he's not alone, many, many others, players union, that kind of thing, all the conversation ends. And in talking with Tracy Jones, in a serious note for a change yesterday, he made the point that, Boras would say, and I've heard him say, that salaries are actually going down because what's happened is you have the mega guys right up here. You have the minimum salary guys way down here, and these guys in the middle have basically been cut out. So when you factor all of that in, you probably do come up with, and it's been proven, that the salaries on average have come down a little bit the last couple of years. But look, we all know that's nothing more than eyewash. And I just wonder when the day is going to come, is it ever going to come? You've probably been asking the same question for 45 years. Is there ever going to come a day where there are enough of the rank and file in the union to say, look, boys, if we want this sport to survive outside of maybe 7 or 8 or 9 cities in the country, we've got to give serious consideration to going to the owners to say, hey, look, maybe we'll think about salary cap as long as you guys are on board for revenue sharing.
I don't think you can discount the possibility that that's going to occur, but I think it's going to take a large number of players at the big league level with a certain intellectual mentality to realize that this type of thing has to occur for the future of the game. I don't know, quite honestly, that you have guys that want to get involved in it. I don't think you have guys like Bob Boone around anymore, who was a part of the executive committee back when major inroads were being made shortly after the player union was formed. But it's going to take exactly what you said, active players that can look down the road and see that the road's end will be one of disaster, and have to get people to sit down and realize that there were going to be major concessions made in order to bring about a rosy future for the game of baseball. You know, you hear people talk about nobody ever puts names to it, but I've read a number of times over the last year where there have been people who, whether they are in the know, apparently they are, who have said that the fan will never know how close certain clubs have come to bankruptcy. And I believe that. I truly, truly believe that has happened. And whether or not it's been rectified by Major League Baseball bailing teams out that were badly in need of money, but if there's only been one that's occurred with, then that should be a wake-up call for Manfred and his minions to sit down with baseball ownership and baseball's union and say, boys, we got to figure out a way to make this thing work. Because right now, this formula, if you can call it that, has failed miserably, and we've got to look toward a brighter day with some smarter minds involved.
You know, Dad, I don't know what you say, you know, if you're Bob Castellini, or if you're the owner of the Pirates, or you're the owner of the Royals, or, you know, whoever, right? These teams that when, you know, basically when the season starts,
yeah,
you're not going to compete with these big market teams. Outside of an outlier here and there. There's always one every so often. But the bottom line is, in the argument I make to all the guys that say out there, especially the analytic freaks, well, you know, look, this team did this and this team. I said, look, outside of the Kansas City Royals in the last 2 decades, find me a team from a mid-market, small market that have won the World Series. That was the Kansas City Royals a number of years ago when they caught lightning in a bottle, had all those young players together, played great, made a deal here, deal there near the end. They win the whole thing. But, you know, if you're the Bob Castellinis of the world, and I don't mean just talking specifically about him, but how do you go to your fan base and say, hey, come on out to the ballpark, even though we know we have no chance? He can't say that. But how do you sell people, and you're selling your product no different than Procter & Gamble or Coca-Cola or UDF or what? How do you sell it?
I don't know how you sell it. I feel for those people down there that are trying to come up with some type of promotional concept that will enable people to buy into it. Because at the end of the day, let's be honest now. I mean, you know, we have dyed-in-the-wool fans, and I know some of them, that are going to go down there and watch this team play, win or lose, and win or lose over a period of years. They're still going to go down there because they're huge Reds fans, and they're also huge baseball fans. But at the end of the day, the majority of people are front runners. And if you win, they'll knock the doors down. And if you don't win, then they're going to come occasionally, but not nearly with the passion and fervor that they would normally if they going down on a given day and have great expectation that that team is going to win. I mean, look at the Bengals. I sat there and marveled at that stadium on Sunday, and how the one thing that I'd never expected, because as I said, I'd been away for so long, is the noise never stops. These people are so into it. Why are they into it? They're into it, one, because this team wins. Why does this team win? It wins because of Joe Burrow and a stable of receivers that are gifted beyond anybody's expectation, and an offensive line that's coming together, and a defensive secondary that's playing better than it's played all year long. That's the reason why those people are there. They go down expecting them to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and they go down expecting them to beat the Cleveland Browns on Sunday, and down the road, the Buffalo Bills. That's what winning is all about. And that's the biggest I'll never forget Roger Rule, who was the marketing director when I came with this club in 1974. And I think Roger was the one that people praised him for his promotions and everything. He said, let me tell you what the best promotion on earth is, and that's winning. And that's exactly right. So short of that, I don't know what you say to fans.
When you look at some of the moves that have been made, all big market teams outside of the Josh Bell. That Josh Bell thing, by the way, stunned me. I don't know if it stunned you, because Cleveland is one of those teams, even though they find a way to win a lot of games. Great manager, great farm system. They bring up pitchers in mass, it seems like, every 2, 3, 4 years, and just replace the next guy, the next guy, the next guy. I was stunned by the Josh Bell thing. 2 years, $33 million to go to Cleveland.
I know. It's mind-blowing. Well, he was with San Diego last year, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And Josh Bell, he's a nice player. I mean, but nice is about the best I can give him. And once again, though, that points up what we were talking about a short time ago about the salaries. And see, this is the part where I disagree with the Antichrist. That would be Scott Boras. He talks about there's no middle class. The hell it isn't, because every time salaries go up for the big dogs, those guys that would be categorized as middle of the road or middle class players, their salaries are going up also. Now, they're not going up to the tune of what the megastars are getting, but every time those guys' contracts jump, so do the guys in the middle class. You telling me Josh Bell's a whole lot better than a middle class player? I would tell you you're crazy.
Well, I just don't. I mean, I'm almost at a loss for words in watching what's going on here, because, whether we've talked the last few days, Dad, about Philadelphia, huge market, Giants, huge market, Yankees, outside of the Bell deal, there has been nothing of significance made by 90% of the teams. And I throw the Cubs in that group because they just signed Cody Bellinger, who I think the guy's a stiff. He had 1 year and great year, MVP, but outside of that, before it and after it, I think the guy's a stiff. But Turner leaves and goes to Philadelphia. You wonder about the Dodgers. I know they gave Clayton Kershaw $20 million a year, and they've still got a lot of good players, but I think we all agree that Turner was their best player. And now to have him walk out the door, it makes me kind of scratch my head a little bit about what's going on with him.
Well, I've got faith in the Dodgers. Whether or not they are able to recover from losing Trey Turner, who I thought was one of the top 3 or 4 players in the National League. I mean, that Trey Turner can do everything. And I don't think Trey Turner left L.A. out of a sense of not liking it there. I think he left there out of a sense of wanting to get back to the East Coast, where he and his wife are from. He went to NC State, was a fine player there. I think they will figure out some way to, if not completely recover from the loss of Trey Turner, they'll figure out a way to make it happen. I think Dodgers and the Yankees, I thought Boston. I think there's certain upper echelon teams, and I think if you say who are they? Well, the first 2 names come up are the Dodgers and the Yankees. I don't think there's any question about that. So I don't worry about the Dodgers, and I think they'll figure out a way to recover from the loss of Trey Turner and move on.
I sit there, Dad, and I wonder, is this like a housing market or a stock market bubble? Does this thing sooner or later pop? Because you tell me if you agree with this. Excuse me. I think the biggest single issue, and it's starting to get some pub. Manfred had to address it yesterday at the winter meetings. I think the biggest single topic facing this sport is what might happen with these regional sports networks. There's talk that Bally's, which you watch the Reds games, they own, I think it is, Bally has the rights between baseball, the NBA, and the NHL. I think has 64 different teams it has the rights to. Those are contractual obligations. Whatever the Reds deal is, just pick a number. Say it's $30 million a year, $20 million a year for the TV deal. Doesn't matter what it is. Point is, television is the biggest single sponsor locally and nationally for every single Major League Baseball team. There is talk, there's a possibility that this company is going to run out of money at the end of 2023. And I have to believe that more than anything going on, the rule changes, the salaries, the big money, all this sort of stuff, the lack of fan interest, that has to be the scariest thing in the minds on Park Avenue.
Agree 100%. I read a long piece about the financial situation dealing with Bally Sports on The Athletic last week. And it's not a pretty picture at all. I mean, this is an outfit that became overextended financially in their haste to be recognized as the single biggest rights holder there is in professional sports. And you're right. This will all of a sudden become priority number one if at some point this whole thing goes under, because I don't know what baseball would do. Obviously, I'm sure Rob Manfred has discussed this with his people ad nauseum, and I would have to think that they know a hell of a lot more about this whole situation than we do, and how far along it is, and whether or not it's feasible that it could go under. And if that's the case, and sometimes I give them more credit for having more sense than they do, they have to be better prepared and have some inkling about what they're going to do if one day Bally Sports walks into Rob Manfred's office and said, here's the key to the kingdom, we don't want it anymore. It's scary. It truly is scary. And again, I go back to the fact that the formula for success, you don't see the NFL worrying about this. That guy's got the greatest job on earth, Roger Goodell.
Yeah.
You know it better than me because you worked in that league for so long. But they don't have problems like that. And that's all baseball's got. Worrying about whether or not the rights holder of all rights holders is one day going to say, we can't do it anymore. We don't have any money. We're out of money. That's the most frightening thing, and you're 100% right, of all the other things that are being discussed and implemented in the game of baseball today, rules changes and whatnot. What's going to happen if Bally Sports goes belly up?